hopefully others will join as we move along. I saw Donna last week, and I know that she is We're going to skip the icebreaker that we typically have on our agenda, and I do not see any. Oh, one more. Good morning, Suzette. Welcome to our committee meeting.
Good morning. Thank you.
Can you take a minute and introduce yourself?
Sure. Hi, my name is Suzette Morales. I work for Federal Highways. I attend the Winston-Salem MPO meetings, and I was invited a long time ago by the previous bike pad person, Matt, and I just never got the time. I'm like, yes, I can come. So I'm excited to finally be able to attend this committee meeting.
Well, very good. Welcome, and we're very happy to have you today.
Thank you.
And we just launched in, and we were just getting ready to get kicked off. So thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, so I don't see anyone else from the public that may want to make comments. I'll stop for just a minute in case I'm not seeing anyone, or if anyone from the Department of Transportation offices wants to make a comment. All right, nope. Hearing none, we'll move on. I removed the icebreaker today because we have a packed agenda, and I want to make sure that we can try to get through everything. I'm very excited that Jamie Mayer will be joining us later with Piedmont Environmental Alliance. We're hoping that this is a partnership that we can begin to build. And I shouldn't say begin, because I think we've already started a partnership with them. But I'd like to see if we could strengthen that partnership, because they are focused on sustainability. So I'm excited that she's going to be joining us later this morning. We'll start with a consideration of the minutes from the May 8th meeting. Did anyone see any edits or would like to make any comments on the minutes from the month of May? Hearing none and seeing none, I would like to have a motion for approval.
I'll make that motion, Greg.
Thank you, Greg. Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you, John. All in favor?
Aye.
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 Opposed? Hearing none, the minutes are approved. That was great.
Very
Thank
good
you.
job, Ben, once again.
It was a good job.
Thanks,
Thank you, Ben.
It's appreciated.
Moving on to the next topic. This is the one that we deferred from last month because we ran out of time. But we'd like to take a minute. This is coming from the Policy Plan and Project Work Group. We have created a presentation, and I'll call it an educational presentation for those that are willing to help to carry this presentation out to the businesses in the Old Salem defined district area to use to help them understand what it means to be a pedestrian bicycle friendly district. So we have that document to review with you and the support letter. And so Ben, I didn't ask you ahead of time, but can you pull the letter up and we'll take a look at that real quick?
Yeah.
I should have prepped you on that. I'm sorry, I forgot. Welcome, Sharon.
Might take me a minute to find it, actually.
Yeah.
While he's pulling it up, I can offer just one comment, is that I noticed the MUP is not spelled out multiple places, and I would just recommend spelling out multi-use path everywhere.
Okay.
Just because people don't know what that means. And also, we need to name that because MUP is not what we're gonna call it at the end of the day. So it's more a thing for Ben, I guess.
That's a good point. I didn't know if that name was stuck in stone or.
No, I mean, that's like calling, that's a street. That's a description of a type of infrastructure, not a name of a
Yeah.
thing. So whether the city wants to brainstorm that, or maybe it goes out for the public, I think we've got plenty of time while construction is still underway, but when it's finished, I don't think it's going to be called multi-use path. It might be something multi-use path, but anyways, if we can spell it out, that's all.
Thank you. That was a good suggestion.
Carol, do you want to go over the presentation first? Does that work?
Sure.
And then I'll
Yep,
find the letter.
Yep, if you've got that pulled up, go ahead. And I'm going to go through it fairly quickly. Again, we've got a tight agenda today. Welcome, Sharon. Welcome, Brandon.
Morning.
Can everybody see my screen?
Yes.
Yeah.
There is a title introduction page, which plainly states the Bicycle Pedestrian Active Mobility Advisory Committee seeks the support to designate the Old Salem District a pedestrian bicycle friendly district. And that, like the MUP, that doesn't have to be the name. The name could change. Our committee actually thought about it for a little bit and decided that we were not marketing or salespeople, and said that we could defer that to the city or the committee to consider, what that name should be. And part of that discussion was the result of sharing this with John Larson. And he said he wasn't sure that we could call it a district since there are defined districts in town. So the other name could be a zone, but that doesn't sound very friendly either. Do people know what a zone is? Anyway, that's up for discussion at a later point in time. I think it's really just getting the information out there and sharing it with the public and trying to get their support. So moving to the next page is and please stop me on any of these pages if you have any edits or comments. So the next page just defines the geographical area of the district. And next page. And this talks a little bit about why we're focused on this area, and it's the number of visitors, it's the revenue that's generated there, it's the growth, and it's the fact that that whole area is somewhat like a greenway and people are moving about on foot because of the different amenities that are located in that area. So next page. This talks about really the benefits. So it encourages walking, it creates a dynamic area, and we're trying to capitalize on all that and actually try to bring it closer together. Next page. And these are implementation recommendations. Again, I think you've heard me say in prior meetings that we conducted a walk audit or several walk audits of the area, and we were looking at different things that could enhance the walkability and bikeability of the area. So one of the things was taking the recommendation out of the prior master plans for that conversion to two-way traffic of Main and Liberty, and creating two-way cycle tracks on the Old Salem Road section. We noticed several crosswalks that could be enhanced with rapid flashing beacons. We saw some intersection with none of the intersections in the area have a leading pedestrian interval. So we're recommending that everywhere that there is a stoplight right now, that all of those be upgraded to leading pedestrian intervals. There were a couple of locations, I think it was 2, maybe 4, but 4-way stops could slow traffic down on those particular streets. We saw where if you install some wayfinding signage, it would help the pedestrians and cyclists get from one greenway to another, or to a amenity in that area, or to another area. We thought that maybe some additional bike parking is needed in key locations. We didn't really identify those key locations. That's for future identification, but we didn't see a lot of bike parking as we walked around that space. We are recommending that vehicular traffic be reduced to 30 miles per hour on Broad, Marshall, and Salem, and that it be 20 miles per hour on all residential streets. And then we are suggesting that we eliminate the right turn on red. So next page. So what does that do? It, of course, creates a safer environment. It should encourage more walking and riding in the community. And as we all know, that creates a healthier community and broadens the appeal for tourists and visitors. And then, yeah, so this then goes into the enhancements. Next page. This shows the diagram and a conceptual view of what Old Salem Road would look like with that 2-way conversion. So we're suggesting a sidewalk on the east side. There could be parking, and then 2 lanes of traffic with a median in the middle, a buffer between the cars, so protected cycle track, a 2-way cycle track on the west side, and then that's to represent the strollway on the west side as well.
Carol, just real quick, can you clarify, is the 46 feet what the current dimensions of that roadway are? Or Ben, I don't know if you know.
I can't think of it off the top of my head.
Well, we came up with 46 from somewhere, so I assume that's pretty similar to what we have. Like, what this is based off of more or less what we have width-wise, I think.
I think that's correct.
Okay, all right.
John, do you know you started one of the conceptual views as well?
I took that, I think, from Ben, as I remember.
Okay. So we're not saying we're adding or taking away from any of the right-of-ways. This is just saying this is how much space we already have and how we would like to reorganize it.
Right. Thank you.
I'm going to say that I bet you the pavement width and the right-of-way varies throughout the whole length of that section there. I don't know that there's a standard or a consistent pavement width or right-of-way through there, to be honest with you. But I know you're showing a typical there, and that's fine. But I would not be surprised, and Ben will probably check on this, but I'm going to guess, because there is a concrete median on part of the road and sections where there's not a concrete median, that there's some variation of pavement width and right of way. So just a little tidbit just to think about. But I like the diagram totally. So just take my comment for what it's worth, but just from experience.
Should we change the 46 to just say typical road width?
Oh, that might be a good change. And Sharon, I just saw your comment. Thank you. Okay. And Alex, I think I looked at that one time. Old Salem Road used to be part of the state. And I'm trying to remember, I don't think any of the roads that are in this area are NCDOT right-of-way roads. I believe that they go north, but not south of the parkway. And I think they're further, I'll have to check that again, but I know what you're getting at, Alex, and thank you for bringing that up. What Alex is asking is if they are in the NCDOT right-of-way, we cannot lower the speed limits. So I'll go back and take a look at that. I know I've got a link to that map. I'll have to find it, but I'll go check that out again. Any other thoughts or comments on this page? Great discussion. Thank you all. Next page, Ben. All right. So we thought we would try to add some pictures of what we're talking about to help. Again, this is an educational document you can take out to help the businesses understand what we're describing. So that's a picture of the rapid flashing beacon. And these are the these are the different intersections that we identified where we think that it would enhance that crosswalk. I think if I remember right, there already is a crosswalk, but there is no flashing beacon at South Broad Street and Carolina University. And they have a lot of foot traffic across there on the weekends. I think they even have a detective or someone of authority that's assigned there to help stop that traffic for the people going to church. But there's also the universities there. There's a school associated with the church. So there's always a lot of foot traffic there. And I think that the flashing beacon would be an enhancement for that. It's in the middle of an interchange. There is not oh, sorry.
Yeah, I didn't know if you guys were using the raised hand. They've just made some enhancements to that crossing. There is not an officer assigned there. They do hire off-duty police officers to sit in the parking lot. Periodically, they used to do it more often, and I believe there's just not a need anymore. Interesting history there. When I moved to West Salem, Franklin Street went all the way through and teed into Broad, and the Salem Baptist petitioned at the time the university was connected to Salem Baptist. They petitioned the city. Greg, you maybe remember all of this. Petitioned the city to close that street, and as part of the closing, they had to incorporate neighborhood access and a park-like environment, which is why they now have the pretty sidewalk with the fountain and the grass running between that block of Broad and Green. But they have just made some enhancements, and I believe they put in a flashing light. Oddly, I'm on the back side of Salem University, Carolina University, and I don't go all the way to Broad very often, but I believe they have just done that when they finished their new parking lot.
Oh, excellent. Because when we did the walk audit, I don't recall a flashing beacon there.
No, this is very recent.
Okay. Maybe they're intuitive and they know this is coming.
Well, and again, this is part of the Old Salem district, and I'll get to that when you wrap up if you'd like.
Okay. Next is the Marshall and Walnut.
Sorry.
Nope, that's fine. Thank you. Next is Marshall and Walnut. There is not a crosswalk there now, but that walks you directly over to the Coca-Cola plant that is being renovated, which will have a lot of foot traffic going there. And from there, then you can access the new the newer development in that south area, east of Texas and lesser, all of you know what's down there. So there's a lot of foot traffic there, and we were thinking that visitors to Old Salem would want to access that by foot because it's not that far. Why drive, walk over there. And then the other is actually the opposite direction. So from the visitor center to Old Salem, instead of crossing, it would give the individuals the opportunity to cross without going across the bridge, which I know they probably prefer people to use the bridge, but there are a lot of people that try to just walk across by foot there. So this would give extra protection for those walking across by foot. The strollway in Brookstown, actually that has already been, the crosswalk has been added, but we're thinking a beacon there would be nice, especially after the two-way traffic starts. The strollway and West Academy Street, a flashing beacon there just to draw more attention to, hey cars, there is a strollway here and people are crossing. And then the last one is East Salem Avenue and Salem College. Their crosswalk over to their athletic fields is almost indistinguishable right now. And cars are moving very rapidly down that hill. So I think that would add some advantage.
How do I not? There.
Okay. Thank you.
Carol, this is Greg again. I just looked on the state maintained roads map, and you're correct that the city does do the maintenance of Old Salem Road through Salem, Old Salem itself. So the state's maintained boundary stops at the traffic circle roundabout there from Waughtown Street. So
good. What about Salem Avenue and Marshall and Broad?
Salem Avenue. No, those are all city streets.
Very good. Thank you. I was thinking that was what I had remembered, but I just couldn't validate that for sure.
The only things that are on the state system is High Street, the off-ramp there from Salem Parkway, and then Cherry Marshall that ties into that. Those are the only other segments that are within our boundary.
Very good. Thank you.
Okay, you're welcome.
Thank you. Sorry, I'm making another note. Go ahead and move to the next slide, Ben, please. Okay. So leading pedestrian intervals, there are no new stoplights added here. These are just the existing ones that are in that territory. And it's just a list to say we'd like these upgraded to pedestrian interval. And I think that can be done fairly efficiently and with relatively low cost. Next slide, please. And then the additional four-way stops recommended are South Broad Street in Washington and South Marshall and Bank. And you may say, why Bank? Because I think that's a three-way intersection, but there are a lot of people in that, and this may be a crosswalk rather than a four-way stop, but this is coming from where the apartments and condominiums are, or townhomes. And just giving them one more place to be able to walk across, and they can actually walk across and access Old Salem and the strollway. And in our walk audits, we saw a lot of people trying to cross there. So we thought that would be a good enhancement. So those are the enhancements. That's the educational piece. Any other comments or thoughts of things to adjust or change? I like the recommendations you all have made so far. and we'll incorporate those in.
Carol, the only thing I would be interested in, again, it's a balancing act. Like, yes, you want to slow traffic, you want to make crossing easier, and you can't necessarily put a stop sign at every intersection. But looking at the Broad Street suggestion, Washington Avenue, definitely probably has a certain amount of like pedestrian possibility there, but just one intersection to the south at Walnut, that is where lesser known is east of Texas, the whole new development. I imagine the northeast corner of that intersection will also be developed in the next several years. And so I wonder, and that's also, there's some, I think traffic exits there from the neighborhood or a school or something at certain times of day. So just curious if that was considered as another location for a four-way stop, or if, you know, it's better to keep the traffic flowing. But that already is an area that I already see a lot of pedestrian people walking just because of the businesses in that area.
Oh, that's a great question, Amy. Probably, and very worthy of bringing up as well. I think Greg and I were doing that walk audit around that area. And I think Greg mentioned that there was going to be some work done because isn't that where the wide turn lanes are?
Yeah.
It's very large in there. And I think the city has that identified, and maybe I should turn it over to Greg, but I think they've got it identified to do some changes to that intersection. And so I think the reason that we selected Broad in Washington was because it was more halfway in between, and we didn't know what those what that intersection would look like in the future. Greg, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
I think you're right, Carol. I think there's probably going to be some physical changes to the intersection there at Broad and Walnut. But to what extent, I'm not really sure, but the city is trying to, in some locations, narrow the distance across intersections and so forth, make it safer for pedestrians to cross. You know, you could very easily just add that into your list here if you wanted to, and have it for both of those locations if you wanted to. I don't think there's anything wrong with adding it as a possibility. So I would agree with Amy that if we're going to have a four-way stop, Walnut Street at Broad might be a preferable one, because there definitely is more pedestrian traffic there than at Washington and Broad.
This is Suzette. Can I give a quick comment, please?
Please.
So I'd have to say about the four-way stops, you would still have to do an intersection analysis to determine if it warrants the four-way stop. So you'd have to go through the MUTCD, which is, how do I say it? The Manual on Uniform Traffic Control Devices. So you'd still have to verify that it warrants it before you can put the four-way stop.
Thank you. And all of these things in here are recommendations. But it is good to know that is required. I learn something new all the time. Seems like. So would everyone like that added as a recommendation? To recommend a four-way stop at that intersection?
Well, I would, because I brought it up, but.
Broad and Walnut, is that your question?
Uh-huh.
Yeah, as a resident of the neighborhood, I would change Washington to Walnut.
You would change it, so remove the recommendation from Washington and make it Walnut. Okay. Is there anyone opposed to that? Very well. We'll make that change. Thank you for this discussion. Any comments or thoughts of how this could be enhanced or changed or made better or?
Carol, the only other thing I could think about is you take this on the road and start talking with the community about this initiative is just funding. I know we don't know exactly where all the funding would come from, but I know people be like, this is a great idea. How do we pay for it? So whether there's a slide in there or just talking points, it would be good to be able to say, you know, the state could provide some funding. There might be federal grants. We anticipate the city would make investments. You know, some of these things could be rolled out pretty quickly based on things we might have on hand. Other things would take a lot longer. So just having some kind of way to articulate the financial piece of how this would be implemented would be, I think, useful. I can anticipate people asking about that. So at least if we have an answer, that would be good.
In an election year, that's absolutely going to be a top question.
Okay.
Yeah, Carol, somewhere in here, I remember we talked about, we had a phased approach wording somewhere, so we could just kind of put the financial piece right there with that. That would probably do it.
Yeah, and it doesn't have to be definitive, right? We don't know exactly.
Right.
But just
Yeah,
if
that
someone
was
says,
one
okay,
thing
cool, these are great ideas. How the heck do we pay for it?
Right, we didn't want to create unrealistic expectations.
Correct.
Right. So I think I skipped that word when I went through this presentation, but we did talk about it. In the presentation, it talks about it being a phased approach.
It looks like Alex had a question. You asked me about our policy regarding speed cushions and speed tables. That's part of our traffic calming policy, so that those could be incorporated along with maybe the speed limit reductions as another additional traffic calming elements.
And then I'd like to piggyback on Suzette's question, just around the operational aspects of this and what has happened to predate the presentation and the community education. I know that you had a conversation with John Larson, but has the conversation, and Ben, of course, I know your DOT split, but has a conversation been had with the city DOT to determine what the process would be and what their expectations are before this is taken to the community? And the reason I asked that is because we had Jeff attend the neighborhood association meeting in May, in which we learned that 7 signatures is what was needed to get the ball rolling. And we had hand printed maps of the neighborhood. So again, for those who don't know, the West Salem Neighborhood Association, West Salem Historic Neighborhood, is part of this outline district that is being proposed by the BPAC as a traffic calming zone. And the neighborhood had already sort of gotten the ball rolling on a lot of these same areas that you've noted here that are really dangerous areas and have had multiple accidents or close calls. And so anyway, Jeff came to the neighborhood association meeting in May, saw the presentation, if you will, which again was printed and handwritten. These are the areas that are problems and why. The 7 signature requirement was met on the spot, just from the attendees in the room, and it has now gone to the city and is being looked at, and they'll come back before the next meeting, which is June 20th, with an update. So just sort of thinking of, and again, drawing on my background, community organizer, that kind of thing, taking this to the community, it's a lot, and it may cause more questions or high hopes than just going and saying, we would like the city to do a feasibility study around traffic calming for this neighborhood. Do you agree that traffic calming is needed? And having signatures collected that way might be a simpler, faster approach. That was a lot, but.
No, I appreciate that, Sharon. Thank you. Ben, you took the presentation and the letter of support to Jeff. Has he provided feedback yet?
He has not. No, I can check with him again though.
Okay. So
Sorry, I missed a step in that. The other thing we did in the neighborhood before creating our proposal and when Jeff was coming to the meeting is we simply put it in the neighborhood Facebook group. Hey, these are some of the areas we know about. Are there others? And for example, my street is a block that is used as a cut through. There's a four-way stop at one end and a stop sign that tees in at the other. And it is a daily, multiple times a day occurrence that people run the four-way stop. They just don't care. And that was not on the list, but in that Facebook group, I was able to say, hey, check this one too. And so it was added in, and some others like that. So again, just a really simple, quick, down and dirty process, was able to build a lot of momentum quickly. Which brings me to my other point, taking this out and going kind of door to door. If someone's not on there and they feel their spot is more important than the other person's spot, then that whole spiral begins as well.
I would agree that could be a problem or an issue. I guess our approach was that this was a recommendation in the bicycle master plan, which was approved by the city council. So that gave us the start to initiate the activity. We have been working with Ben on this, and I mean, he's very aware. We've talked about it. It's been brought up in the last several monthly meetings, and it has been given to Jeff for feedback. So hopefully we'll be able to move forward with it. And we're not talking about taking it out to individuals. We're talking about taking out to the businesses, which would enhance the businesses' foot traffic and bicycle traffic. So I mean, if you look at that area, there is some residential area within that, but there are a lot of businesses if you had an opportunity to look at the list of the businesses. So
it's actually a very dense residential area. If you look at all the apartments, condos, townhomes, and that sort of thing.
True.
Yeah. And as homeowners and taxpayers, the longevity and strength of their input is perhaps more valuable.
Very good. Thank you, Sharon. Well, this has been a very good discussion. Thank you all for your input. And I think we will wait till we hear back from Jeff before we move forward. And we will make these changes and enhancements to the presentation. Ben, has Jamie joined yet?
Do not think so.
Okay, let's go on to the letter of support.
Stop sharing for a second. Pull it up real quick. Right, is everybody seeing this?
Yes.
So this is the letter of support. I'm not going to read it out loud. But were there any suggestions, comments, feedback on this letter? It encapsulates most of everything that's in the educational presentation.
I liked it. I thought it was really well written. It would spell out the multi-use path. One thing kind of as Sharon was talking reminded me, you know, people seem to be, especially residents, seem to be somewhat familiar with the idea of like calming, traffic calming type things. I don't think that word is used in here. And I don't know if it's worth trying to plug it in. I mean, we definitely talk about increasing safety, slowing speeds, blah, blah, blah. But if there's a way to maybe throw that in there, I'm not finding an exact spot right off the bat, but something about calming traffic, increasing pedestrian, cyclist safety, blah, blah, blah. That could be good. But I thought it was nice and succinct and would serve as a good letter of support with the understanding that there's other materials people can look at to fully understand the breadth of the proposal.
Thank you, Amy. Any other suggestions? All right, so next step is to make these few revisions that have been recommended by the committee. And I guess I'll ask the question, does that warrant bringing it back next month for one final review before approval? And then we maybe can get some clarification on what Jeff is thinking as well. I see some head nods, so okay. We'll bring it back again next month to vote on with the edits and Jeff's feedback. All right, thank you all for your time on that. That was really great discussion. All right, Jamie, it's moved to summer, and she warned me that she might be a little bit late.
She's here now, it looks like.
She's here, very good, great timing. Jamie, perfect timing.
Oh, wonderful. Good. How's everybody?
We're great, thank you. And thanks for joining us today. We are very excited to have you here today. Because we want to.
Oh, sorry.
No, go. So this is Jamie Mayer, and she is the CEO of Piedmont Environmental Alliance.
Yeah.
And they are doing wonderful work in our community. The most recent thing that I saw was they worked to help the downtown school of
Art space.
Anyway, they worked with them to get our first e-school bus in town. And they've been working very closely with the city on a lot of different projects. They're promoting solar energy, and they're doing all kinds of great work. They're in our school systems and educating our children in the community on the environment and climate. And I just applaud you for everything that you and your group are doing, and the community that you have built in the triad. So thank you for joining us today, and I'll turn it over to you, Jamie.
Well, thank you, Carol. It's good to see some familiar faces. Hi, Amy. Hi, Sharon. And some folks that I haven't met yet. So appreciate this time this morning, and hope that the first part of your meeting went well. Yeah, I am Jamie Meyer. I'm the Executive Director of Piedmont Environmental Alliance, and many of you kind of know about us, but I think Carol and some others asked me to come today and just give a quick overview of some of the work that we're doing. And then I don't know if we want to have a conversation about some of the things that y'all are prioritizing. Does that sound right, Carol, in terms of what?
That sounds great.
Cool. So I thought I would start with just an overview of our work at Piedmont Environmental Alliance. I do have some slides that I can share. Teams. Choose. Sorry, I'm not used to Teams, but I'm doing it. Can y'all see?
We can.
Great. So Piedmont Environmental Alliance, I like to start out by saying that when we think about the air that we breathe and the water that we drink and the climate that we live in, we need big global solutions to address the problems that we're facing. We need national policy solutions, and then we really need to implement locally and really think about the ways that we are creating a more forward-looking, resilient, just, and sustainable community. And PEA really focuses on that piece of the work. Hold on, let me move this over so I can see. Can you all still see my screen? Give me a thumbs up. Okay. So Piedmont Environmental Alliance really focuses on that local solutions to implementing changes and working with the community for a more just, resilient, and sustainable region. And there we go. I'm not going to go through this really with y'all, except to say that when I do presentations, I often just start by thinking about what are all the ways that the environment impacts us locally, right? Why does the environment matter? So why do we care about our environment? What are some of the kind of things? Does anyone want to jump up? What's something, why does the environment matter?
As a newly diagnosed asthma sufferer, the air quality is a big one.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah,
wow.
so environment is a public health issue. When we think about, the public health crises that we face, from things like asthma and childhood asthma to, kind of heat-related illness, and to how we move around the environment, it definitely has real implications for our health. Any other thoughts about why the environment matters? Oh, health was my top one. Look at that. Environment is a justice issue, right? Why is that? Y'all know.
Heat zones, urban heat zones,
Mm-hmm.
landfill toxins.
Mm-hmm. We know that we live in a country, in a world that has lots of injustice and systemic racism built in. And we know that the problems of our environment and our changing climate are going to deepen and worsen the problems that already exist. And so when we think about how we're creating a stronger, more just and resilient community for the future, we need to think about things like who has tree canopy coverage, who's able to get around on bikes or walking, who's able to spend less on energy, and who isn't. And these are justice issues. And so when we think about kind of all sorts of justice issues that we face in our community, from housing to the built environment, these are all tied into environmental issues. I'd say the environment is an economics issue, right? So when we think about our city bringing folks in from across the country, bringing young people, being a vibrant, economically vibrant community, what are people looking for? People are looking for places just like y'all are working on, where they can bike, where they can walk, where there's green spaces, and really like where there's values-based work. And so the more that we create this sustainable community, the more that we're creating an economically vibrant community. And also the more that we're thinking about future forward jobs, right? The jobs that we need for the future that we want to live in. And the environment is about well-being, right? There's lots of studies that show that we are happier and have less anxiety and just generally doing better when we get to be outside, when we get to be among trees and green spaces, when we get to be connected to one another, which is another thing that I bet y'all talk about when you think about transportation, right? The way that we transport ourselves in cars is a way that we are separated from one another. But the more that we can build those connections and bridges and get out of our cars and get out of our houses and into parks and public spaces, the better off we are. So Piedmont Environmental Alliance works in 3 key ways, 3 strategies that we use to achieve our mission. And the first one is around education. So we focus on teaching young people about environmental issues that matter locally, and doing all sorts of education, really. We have two programs, Energy Explorers and Every Drop Counts, where we actually go into local Winston-Salem, Forsyth County schools, and we take over the day for a science teacher, and we teach about our local water systems, about where our energy comes from, and about how climate change is really impacting folks, and what choices students can make to support the environment. Who here has ever done debate growing up? Is anyone, any debaters in the room? All right, well, I did debate growing up, but they say debate is one of the oldest extracurricular activities, and we think it really is the building blocks for leadership and the leadership skills we want to see in the next generation. So to be an effective debater, we need folks that can really think critically about the problems that we're facing, that can do some deep research, that can listen and respond to problems that, with their arguments, and that can engage in public speaking. And what we found is that it used to be that our high schools across North Carolina had really thriving debate teams, but it became expensive to go to debate tournaments and maybe stay overnight. And so as schools were cutting back, we lost a lot of debate teams. What we do is we partner with Wake Forest University, has a nationally ranked debate team, and we host a free tournament right here in Winston-Salem every spring. And we recruit and train teachers and students to participate from across the region. So this last year, we had about 100 students from 15 high schools in about 5 or 6 counties, most of whom have never debated before. And we help them do that research to understand an environmental topic. They have to debate both sides. So we pick topics where there's not an easy answer. That was always, I remember one particular class in school where we had to write policy memos on environmental issues like, should we use DDT in a place that has a huge malaria outbreak, right? Oftentimes when we're really struggling with questions of policy, there's not a clear answer. DDT is bad and malaria is bad. So what do you do when, kind of those are the two options? And so we look for questions that are interesting to high school students. The last one interesting to y'all, perhaps, is should we ban cars in downtown city centers, right? What does it look like socially? Who wins and who loses? What does it look like economically? What does it look like for all these different issues when we have kind of open walking streets in downtown city centers? So that's what the students debated this past year. Yeah, I'll skip some of that. So we do a lot of education programs. That's kind of one of our strategies. We also host events that build community. So I started out by talking about how we're facing big problems in our environment. And our core belief at Piedmont Environmental Alliance is that the way forward is through partnership and working together. And what are the barriers or obstacles to working together is that we don't always know each other and trust each other, even in our small community, right? We have these great academic institutions, and we've got folks who might be doing top-notch research on water quality, and they may not be connected with the nonprofits who are working on water. And they may not be connected with the businesses who are experiencing, stormwater runoff, or the communities that are experiencing flooding. And they may not be connected with, the stormwater folks at the city or the county. And so we're really interested in building events that bring people together in different ways so that we can know each other and be stronger together. The Earth Day Fair, this is from the Earth Day Fair last April. Who here has been to a Piedmont Earth Day Fair? Amy, for many years, has run the bike valet parking. So if you bike to the Earth Day Fair every year, that's our signature event. You can get a free beer and see Amy, there. But yeah, we have the largest Earth Day celebration in the state of North Carolina right here in Winston-Salem. It truly is, a diverse community event. We have huge representation. It's a great event we're really proud of. We get about 8,000 people every year. We have our sustainability roundtable. Who here has been to a sustainability roundtable? Awesome. Awesome. So that's another one where we invite folks from across sectors that are working on different environmental issues, and we start to form solutions and kind of this brain trust as we get to know each other and partnership. Anyone went to the Green Home Tour this year? That was a new event we had on June 1st. Has anyone been to any home tours, garden tours, holiday home tours? I've been to a couple garden club tours and holiday home tours. What I think is that one of the reasons why it's hard to take action in our homes is that we sometimes lack vision for what things could look like, a positive vision, right? Y'all might see this when it comes to biking as well. Like, we know that lawns are not ideal, but what else is there? Or we know that the street design that we have, where it's really wide and there's no room for anyone but cars, is not ideal, but what else could it look like? So we wanted to provide some vision for folks of what more sustainable homes could look like. And we also think that there's a real power in asking your neighbors for advice and tips. So I don't know about y'all, but these days when I Google search something on the internet, I am overwhelmed, and then I kind of shut down and I don't do anything. So if I want to transition my lawn, I might Google like first steps to pollinator garden. And then there's just so much information and so many ads. It's really hard to know. But I think it's really powerful when I can just ask my neighbor and say, hey, you know, Ben, I know that you are doing some cool stuff. Where did you get those plants? What did it cost? How did you do it? Did you run into this problem? And so the Green Home Tour was an opportunity for folks to go to 8 different properties and talk to the homeowners and learn without a sales pitch about things like solar panels and gardens and electric cars and all sorts of things like that. So we do education, events, and our last kind of bucket of work is around advocacy. So I like to say it's great when we remember to take actions individually, like bringing our reusable coffee cup. But really, we need big institutional change to get where we're going. And so PEA works with the city and the county, some of the things that Carol was mentioning, our local businesses and other institutions like our school systems to really make change. Last year, 2 years ago now, we worked with the Winston-Salem Forsyth County Schools to pass a resolution calling for sustainability to be one of the core values integrated into facilities, operations, and the curriculum. I don't have a slide for this, but Carol mentioned just a couple of weeks ago, the Arts-Based School, which is a local charter school where my kids go to school, was awarded EPA funding to buy an electric school bus. They came to us and said we were looking to do something, and we helped them find the opportunity to apply for this grant, and we helped them fill it out, so help them get that bus. And we're actually just going to meet with the school system on some similar grant opportunities this week. We also have an environmental action coalition that meets monthly and is developing campaigns and advocacy programming together. If anyone's interested in that, let me know. We are a sponsoring member of Forsyth IAF, which is a community organizing initiative. Another one that I don't have a slide for yet is we are a sponsor of a new program called Solarize the Triad, which is a way that folks can buy more affordable solar panels that are higher quality with like the best warranty and support green jobs. It's like a cooperative buying, so the more folks that buy together, and we've already got institutions, including the city, including some local faith communities and some big nonprofits, as well as individuals. It's going to be, I'll send around that link after, but if you're interested at all in solar panels, it's a great time to look into it because there are all of these tax incentives. And then through this cooperative buying campaign, we can get really great deals.
I can honestly say, this is Latricia, that I'm highly interested. I live right in the area where the sun just hits my house all day, and I might as well, get benefits off of that instead of dying of heat.
Right.
However, most of the companies that advertise, and doing my research, are kind of like scams. You don't have, they go out of business right after they put up your system and you have no one to reference. So thank you for
Yeah.
vetting whomever you're going to suggest, because I really am interested in that.
Yeah, well, great. I'll send around the link, and you can sign up now just to say you're interested. And we have an RFP where we have this group of experts who is exactly going to be providing that role of making sure that the company that we choose gives us the highest quality, the biggest warranty, and that we feel, you know, we can really rely on. I do think solar is one of those areas where it's really hard to get clear information from the companies themselves. And so kind of providing that vetting, I think it's going to be really powerful. And then even just, I'm a member of a board of another organization that was already looking at solar panels and had like a quote from a local business that is a good business. But I said to them, oh, you know, you can get, this price is going to go way down as part of this because we're going to buy together in this cooperative model. So it's kind of a cool thing. It's happened really successful all over the country, actually, the Solarize folks, and in particular in North Carolina, there was an Asheville and a Durham. So they've had a bunch of really great campaigns where folks have been able to get those high quality solar panels. Also, we've got a Triad Green Job Center where we're working with local businesses to both be more values driven in kind of their missions, and also to take action for the environment in specific ways. We have a green jobs email that goes out every other month. We are going to have our first Green Jobs Expo this fall. So really thinking about how can we build green jobs up in our community. One way that we do that is through our Green Business Network. This is really outdated. We have about 25 businesses who are currently part of the Green Business Network. And again, that's one where we provide specific action steps for businesses to take, whether it's, you know, kind of some small actions, or we also provide some advising for businesses to take bigger action. So one example is Second Harvest Food Bank is one of our Green Business Network members. They came to us, and just again on the topic of solar, they had kind of tried to run the numbers back in 2019 when they built their new facility. And, you know, it's very confusing what tax credits you can get. What about when you're a nonprofit? How does it all work? What is the actual price going to be? Who, you know, what banks are supporting that work if you need to take money out? We were able to advise them and run the numbers and connect them with a reputable solar company. And they are getting ready to unveil the largest, it's a 1 megawatt solar on their rooftop, the largest in the county right now. So that's going to be starting pretty soon. So yeah, I think that's my quick overview, and happy to talk more, but just, you know, I think I would love to see all of y'all getting that PEA newsletter to know more about what we're up to. Follow us on social media, come to the Earth Day Fair. We're always looking for volunteers. And, you know, folks can become a member. But yeah, we can go, maybe I'll stop sharing and we can kind of transition to a conversation.
I did have one question. I had put it in the chat, and you were talking about the debate teams and the schools that you collaborate with. Do you happen to have a list of those high schools? And if so, would you share them?
Yeah, I don't know offhand who participated this year. Every year it's a little different, but I can certainly get that information. Yeah, I think the winner this year was Parkland. The Parkland team won. There's like a big giant trophy. The final round of the debate tournament happens at the Earth Day Fair. But we've had winners from Atkins. We've had Matt Weaver has won, Salem Academy, Parkland, Carter. Yeah, I'll have to get you that list. We've been doing it 8 years, so I don't remember all the folks who participated.
Thank you.
Yeah. But certainly if y'all are interested, we're always looking for volunteers to judge those students. And that's a great volunteer day because they are so inspiring. They're working so hard. A lot of them have never had the opportunity to do this, to get dressed up and go to a college campus and be an expert on a topic. It's really powerful stuff. Other questions or thoughts or ways that we might work together or that PEA could support some of the priorities that y'all are working on.
We'd love to figure that out, Jamie. That is one of our goals, is to figure out how we can work with each other, or how you can support some of the initiative we're doing. And actually, I think you've already started in your last roundtable. You had a table focused on transportation. So thank you for adding. I don't know if that was a new addition, the transportation topic, but that was great. While it was a lot of familiar faces at the table, it also introduced each of us to someone new. So that was wonderful. And I know I don't need to tell you, but the largest polluter in the world is fossil fuels. So the work that we're trying to do is to get more people out of their cars and on their bicycles, or jumping in their tennis shoes and walking on the streets. So, or not streets, but sidewalks safely.
Yeah.
So that is our focus.
And y'all might not know this, but before I worked at Piedmont Environmental Alliance, I worked for an organization in Boston called Livable Streets Alliance, and we did advocacy for better walking, biking, and public transit in and around Boston. And so I was able to spend a few years really deep in the world of the built environment and how we make our roads and public spaces. And so definitely that's an issue that's near and dear to my heart personally. You know, I think once you see what's possible, and then you see what's happening where you are, you don't unsee it. And so that's certainly something that I think a lot about. I think that's an area where, you know, we are pretty far from the gold standards of what our streets could look like. And I think that when we think about trying to get more folks, we used to talk about 8 to 80, right? You want folks 8 to 80 feeling comfortable getting around the streets in different ways. And, you know, that's just not the case here in Winston. And I experience that because I walk a lot and I bike just like all of us. And I think our greenway system is really magical. But I would love to see, a more emphasis, especially, you know, one strategy we used a lot in Boston and the surrounding areas is when the streets are already being redesigned. So when they're being repaved or painted, that's a good time to start thinking about things like road diets and separated cycle tracks and sidewalks and tree canopy. But it's hard work, and that's certainly, I think it's an area where our city could be leading the way and being certainly more innovative, but also just kind of doing the things that we know are best practices. I think that information is certainly out there.
Thank you. Any other questions for Jamie?
One thing that I'll just say on that, oh, sorry, I see you had a question, Sharon, but I'll just say real quick that, you know, one possibility too is as y'all are noticing opportunities where we could do something different in Winston and where it would be helpful to have lots of voices saying, hey, in a real positive way, we would love to see X, Y, or Z. That's an opportunity to reach out to PEA so that we can publicize. So if there's a public meeting where we're talking about putting in more infrastructure, we'd be happy to get folks there, or if there's an opportunity to celebrate something. So, you know, we think, you know, that's really a possible way forward.
Jamie, one of the things I thought of as you were talking, especially about your background, and then of course the work that Piedmont Environmental Alliance does, is the advocacy and policy change work. The organization I work for also does equity advocacy and policy change work. And do you offer trainings for advocacy, like for community members, or have you considered doing that?
I love that idea. Tell me more about what you would want to see specifically, Sharon.
Yeah, and this could get long, so we might need to have this offline, but doing advocacy training for constituents so that they understand how to engage in policy matters, understand why and how policy impacts them personally or as small businesses, and then training, education on how to engage.
Yeah.
You know, why it matters. The conversation that I have over and over and over and over and over online especially is you need to talk to your representatives. If this matters to you, you can't just talk about it on social media. You have to talk to your representatives. And I've even had that comment. A friend noted that it felt like an attack on the city council member for someone to keep saying you need to talk to this person who represents your neighborhood. And I was like, wow, no, you know, not from me. Anyway, long story short, to have people really understand why it matters to engage and how the decisions being made at local, regional, state, federal impacts them.
Yeah. Yeah, we have done some trainings like that, and we have done some things about just like how to get engaged in civic discourse. And so, yeah, it sounds like a couple folks are interested in that. I know Amy has worked on that a lot as well, but that would be fun to think about if there's a group that wants to think about kind of what are the questions. And I think also like what are the different tactics and strategies we can use. I think that's an area where I feel like I just have had a lot of experience working in advocacy spaces in different places. And I think we tend to kind of try the same things here in Winston. And what are the whole range of tactics we can use? And how do we create a power map to talk about, is it the city councilor who's blocking it, or is it somewhere else? Like, where is it getting stuck? How do you identify that? And then how do you move that person?
Right. Yeah, we do trainings with small business owners to help them understand policy matters, but I think it could be really beneficial to start even at the some of the city advocacy committees like this one, and then trickle it down to neighborhoods and individuals.
Yeah, I love that idea.
Jamie, I'd love to be able to talk to you more and allow the committee to ask more questions, but we've got 4 more topics that we've got to cover in the next 15 minutes. No. This was great. I loved you coming on, and I love your energy. I love the work that your organization is doing, and I do see a bright future in our partnership. As soon as we figure out all the ways that we can work together.
Well, I'm always here. I'll put my email here. I'm just an email away, and excited to support all the great work you're doing. I appreciate you all for your volunteer work on this committee. Thank you.
Thank you. And you're welcome to stay for the next 15 minutes if you'd like.
I've got to run to my next thing, but I really am grateful, and I love seeing your faces this morning. Thank you.
Thank you, Jamie.
Bye.
All right, we do have some topics that we're going to have to move through quickly. Hunter, are you still on?
Yep, I am. Indeed. Yes, I'm still on. Sorry, I think my mic was on delay there.
And are you ready to go? This is a follow-up from our discussion last month.
Yep, I am ready to go. So we're going to follow up really on one of the items. We covered a lot of topics in the last meeting, but the main event really is prioritization. Right now, our MPO is in the regional impact point assignment window. I'm going to share my screen really quickly so that you can kind of contextualize where we are. So give me one moment to do that. All right. And can everybody see the slide on my screen that says STI, or Strategic Transportation Investments Law?
I cannot. Now I can.
Okay, awesome. So we are going through a process known as prioritization. This is to allocate funds dedicated to the state of North Carolina, either through state-raised funds or federal funds that are allocated to the state. And this process develops the 2026 to 2035 State Transportation Improvement Program, which is essentially a 10-year financial and construction schedule for major transportation projects. The MPO has the ability to submit projects through this process for consideration, and I wanted to let you know where we are. So statewide mobility scoring just wrapped up. In our MPO, none of our statewide mobility projects were selected for funding. For information, statewide mobility projects are interstate projects, significant rail freight projects, really large, expensive projects of regional and national significance. That cascades down to regional impact, which is, this is the window that we are in now. Regional impact projects are generally focused more on roadway projects still. However, some of these roadway projects do incorporate bicycle and pedestrian elements. A lot of these highway projects are on US highways or state highways. And then there are a couple of rail projects also of regional significance too, because they span multiple counties. And a couple of those do involve plans for passenger rail serving Winston-Salem. Obviously, that still needs to go through a lot of planning, but those were put in just to signal our intent for that to be a reality sometime in the future. Anyhow, regional impact projects are now under consideration. 70% of it is based on a score that NCDOT gives, and then 30% is based on local input. And that is really where you all come in. There is an opportunity, or will be an opportunity, between June 14th and June 15th, June 14th and July 15th, I should say, to give us feedback on regional impact projects that your group is interested in. So really quickly, I will provide a link in an email directly to Carol and Ben after this meeting, but I do want to announce that we have an interactive map that is available on our public comment center through the MPO. And this allows you to click enter and then scan around to learn about the projects that are under consideration for funding in the regional impact process. On the 14th, you will be able to add multiple comments. Right now we have an option to add comments, but there will also be a button that says, if I had 100 local input points, this is what I would give, this is the project I would select. So we certainly encourage you to consider that. This can either be on an individual basis, so interested members of the BPMAC who want to leave comments on preferred projects can do so via this tool or via direct email to us. Or if your group decides to go the way of creating a resolution and look for projects that are incorporating bicycle and pedestrian elements, not just in the city of Winston-Salem, but also in our region as well. And if you have any questions as you're going through these projects, whether some of these projects will incorporate bicycle and pedestrian improvements or betterments, please reach out to us. That should be apparent in most of the project descriptions, but there may be a few in there where it's less clear. So we're perfectly happy to work with you on that. And it may not even be, a resolution of support that you direct to council. It may be more of a support letter or a comment that you direct to the Metropolitan Planning Organization instead, since this is more of a regional type of project. But I wanted you to know about prioritization, where these projects stand. And then finally, just to leave a really quick note, and this will be my last note, which is that this is really of heightened importance this year because the regional impact is really the only area where we anticipate to have funding this year. We received an unfortunate note from the North Carolina Department of Transportation's State Transportation Improvement Program unit on the financial picture for division needs. And in Division 9, where we live, we are currently unable to assign, really pick any projects. We'll still go through the prioritization process when the division needs process comes up later this fall. But it is unfortunate from the perspective of division needs is the only category that directly can be used to support bicycle and pedestrian standalone projects. Now they are subject to that, 20% local match, but that is the only area where just bike ped projects can be under consideration. They are competing against highway, rail, and all the other modes of transportation. Hopefully we'll have better news for you in the coming months if the financial picture changes there. But the reason I say that is that giving your comments on regional impact and potentially, helping guide the TAC or, whatever group in your interests in picking the projects that accommodate bicycle and pedestrian users. It's really of heightened importance this year. As compared to the division needs. Happy to answer any questions on that.
So there were no projects under the first category. 30% of total funding goes to the second category, the regional needs. And then were you saying that the 30% at the division needs is not going to happen at all based on funding, or that comes later in the fall?
So a little bit of both. So right now we are being asked to complete the division needs point assignment in the fall. But the word that we got from the state was that our division, its portion of that 30% that you're mentioning is, we are in the negative in that area.
Okay.
We're working to gather more information on why that is and whether that's, will change. But generally speaking, we're not expecting that our point assignment and division needs will result in any new projects being selected. And then to answer the first part of your question about the statewide mobility, that is a statewide competition ranked entirely on quantitative measures from the state and a lot of the larger areas of the state with larger highway and freight projects like Charlotte and Raleigh really got the lion's share of that funding this year.
Okay, thank you, Hunter. I've participated in things like this in the past, and it is not that difficult to do. It is somewhat time consuming, especially when you're trying to work with that map, but I highly recommend each of you on the committee to take some time. This speaks to what Sharon and Jamie were talking about at the end of Jamie's presentation, where we have a voice and we need to use our voice if we want things to be different or change. So please, once you get that link from Ben or myself, access that between now and July 15th. And we may revisit this at next month's meeting and have a discussion on this to see if there are any of those projects that warrant a resolution from our BPAM. And then we can write that resolution and get it submitted by July 15th, because I think there is enough timing in there between our next meeting and when the deadline is to be able to do that.
So
that's correct. And if I might add one quick thing, we also have a July 1st public meeting that will be at Union Station from 7 a.m. to 6 p.m. That is a Monday. If any of you can drop by, we would certainly appreciate that. That's maybe a more direct chance to interact with staff directly, ask more, in-depth questions about individual projects if you're so inclined. And it just so happens to be before your next BPAM meeting. So that way, if that helps you, draft a resolution of support, our staff are there all day from 7 a.m. to 6 p.m. on July 1st. So just wanted to throw that out there.
Thank you, Hunter.
So Carol, our next meeting is the 10th. The deadline is the 14th. So there's not a ton of turnaround time. I would recommend that the committee individually looks at that map, and then some set of people work to create a draft letter of support from the committee that then is published like we normally publish materials a week or two in advance. So that by the time the 10th comes around, folks have had a chance to look at it, and hopefully all we're doing is voting. But I would defer to the rest of the committee if that sounds good. But I would like to submit something as a committee in addition to my personal opinions on the map. So if we can do some pre-work in the next several weeks, I think that would be fine. But we would need to have shared something before the 10th and then maybe potentially vote on it together on the 10th, if that sounds reasonable.
No, that's a perfect plan, Amy. Thank you. Who would like to participate in that?
I can't make a suggestion and then say I can't do it. So I will. Come July, I may have less availability, but for the next several weeks, I can at least do some of my own research and maybe relay that back to the group.
All right.
If there's other
I'm happy to help write the email.
Awesome.
All right. Anyone else like to volunteer? Amy, you know I'm always willing.
Yeah, well, Hunter said the information will be out this Friday, so we can all start to kind of look at the maps, and that gives us a couple weeks to kind of tool around and stuff. And I might just be in touch with Hunter and Ben and others to clarify things. But yeah.
All right.
I'll get with you, Sharon, on drafting.
Hunter, thank you for joining us. Again, got a few more things to cover. Ben, talk about the MUP real quick.
Yeah, as many of you know, the multi-use path project has been long in the making, and the construction will begin on one of the portions of it in July, and we'd like to hold a groundbreaking ceremony that will take place July 2nd at 11 a.m. And you're all invited, and you're all encouraged to tell everybody else you know to come out and join us. It will take place near the ballpark, near Green Street Pedestrian Bridge, in the Winston-Salem dash lots nearest to the Green Street Pedestrian Bridge. So that should be a really good time. There should be some council members there and some other NCDOT folks and other and Winston-Salem DOT staff there. So you're all encouraged to come out.
Anybody that has access. Oh, sorry. 11.
11.
So
11 a.m. That's right.
Yeah. Anybody that has access to social media or groups, please get the word out. This morning was the first time I heard of it. So we'd love a big turnout for the groundbreaking. So, and when we send the link that Hunter is going to provide, we'll give that information, we'll reiterate that information in that, because that was a lot to capture real quick. 1 minute. So Education Committee has some great news. Michael, I hope that Oliver has talked to you. I had the opportunity to see him last week when I attended the Vision Zero conference in Chapel Hill. So he shared the news with me. Have you heard? And would you like to make the announcement from the Education Committee?
I'm not sure I know what you're talking about.
I was afraid of that. Okay, I'm sorry. I was pretty excited about it, and I should have sent you an email, but I saw Oliver Swindell with Bike Walk North Carolina at the Vision Zero conference last week, and he has been working with Reagan High School, and there is a driver's training class later this month, and Bike Walk North Carolina is going to present their driver-friendly training to the Reagan High School driver's ed. They are very excited about this because this is the first time that they have worked with a driver's education class. So big steps.
So I do know about that. I'm the one that got that set up, but yeah, I didn't hear any. I hadn't heard of it. You know, I haven't communicated with him in recent weeks. So yes.
So Michael, thank you and your team for the work that you're doing on the Education Committee to make that happen. So sorry to be the one to break the news to you, Oliver. I would have hoped that Oliver would have reached out to you. The last thing that I wanted to make sure that we covered, it is 10 o'clock, but please look at item number 10 on the agenda. It is the Great Trails State Conference. It is in Winston-Salem, and it is September, I think it starts on the 11th and goes to the 13th, but Thursday evening of that conference, they would like some trail docents. And you might say, what is a trail docent? A trail docent is really a leader for the group, but they want the conference participants to be able to participate in either a trail run, a bike ride, a walk, mountain bike exploration, I'll call it, and then kayaking. The kayaking is actually on Friday, but the A through D are actually Thursday evening. I think that it will start at 4:30 and run to about 6:30. They're trying to squeeze it in after the conference lets out for the day and before dinner. but give them enough time that they can come back and freshen up a little bit before dinner. So please think about that. We'll bring it up again next month, but we need someone we need. I think it would be great for our committee to participate in one of these activities with the Great Trails State Conference. We may replicate some of the same areas that we have in the past. So it'll be just, less than 2 hours of your time for one evening, and you get to meet a lot of other great people from across the state that are interested in the activity that you volunteer for. So keep that in mind. Mark your calendar for that date if you have an interest in doing that, and we'll talk about it more next month. So any other comments or questions? It's 10:02.
This is Greg. I wanted to ask a question. Is it possible that I may have asked this before, is it possible to consider adding people to our committee?
We are adding people to the work groups. I saw Mason jump in earlier, but I don't think he's still on. And they are the individuals that are in our work groups, which Greg knows Mason and John knows Mason. He's part of the policy plan and project work group. But we have added an individual from the community to each of those work groups. Right now, our ordinance limits us to 11, and we have 10 slots filled. We have 1 vacancy. We are trying to hold that vacancy for someone from one of the wards that we do not represent or from a university, but we're having difficulty in finding someone to fill that 1 vacancy that we have. But our means right now to add to or expand our capabilities to a broader community is to add individuals to the work groups. So if you know of individuals that are interested in joining our committee, Ben has shared some names with me, and usually when I respond to them, I will respond saying pretty much what I just said to each of you and give them an opportunity to join one of our work groups. Right now I have an individual that is interested, and right out of the gate, he said he was interested in policy plan and project, which is great. So we'll keep adding or expanding our reach in the community through those work groups if possible.
Well, where I was heading with my question was, I'm sorry, excuse me. I'm wondering if there is an individual that lives in my neighborhood here that is wheelchair bound, and I'm wondering whether it would be helpful, advisable to have a member that is that has a disability, I guess.
That would be excellent. Ben and I tried to do that, thought we had someone, and it did not work.
Okay, all right. Well, I've not talked to this person, but I do know this person commutes from our neighborhood here in Washington Park to her job at east of Texas, which is about, half a mile away, and uses the sidewalks excuse me, with a motorized wheelchair, and very capable individual, very bright. But I have not spoken with her about the possibility of coming on to our committee, but I'd like to recommend or at least pursue the possibility of adding somebody that has I hate to even say that, a disability, but has, that perspective, I guess.
No, that would be great. Go right ahead and talk to her, because that was also one of the, either a different ward or an impairment or something like that is what we were trying to reserve that spot for.
I think years ago when we had the bike and pedestrian committees. We had individuals that had disabilities that were, but this was also involving, accessing transit as well. So it was a little bit larger, more expansive committee, I guess at that time when I was on staff and so forth. So it's not a criticism, it's just a thought that as we move forward with our group, that we continue to diversify and bring in more perspectives. So
Great. Thank you, Greg.
And
All
one
right.
other thing, I hate to say this, but one other thing I saw the other day that I'd never seen before was a rail bicycle that there's around the United States. There's a movement, I guess, to some degree, that people are actually building bicycles, or not even bicycles, but vehicles that can ride on rails, and basically they're pedal powered, and there's you can have outings on them and so forth. So there's a movement abound out there that I thought was kind of interesting. That it might be another, we're talking about active mobility. This might be another mode to even think about, is the possibility of having people use a couple of our abandoned rail lines for possible transit movements. So I'm just tossing that out there. It's just something I thought was actually kind of cool, and made me even think about, well, maybe I want to purchase one myself. So, but anyway, that's it. That's all I wanted to mention. Thank you.
Thank you, Greg. All right. Is there a motion to adjourn?
Well, since I took up all the time here and extra time here, I will make that motion to adjourn.
Is there a second? Thank you, John. All right, with that, I'm sure we've lost half the committee, so I'm sure that it's time to adjourn. So thank you all for today. Great meeting, a lot of topics covered. So, and until we meet again. Thank you.
Can I ask one quick question? Was Ben had mentioned a meeting, an event on July the 1st? Is that? And I missed that. I had to step out for just a minute, but I missed that. What is that, please?
I'll send more information in an email pretty shortly, but it's a public input meeting here at Union Station. So I'll send some information out on that.
What's happening out at Green Street then?
That's July 2nd, and that is the groundbreaking ceremony for the multi-use path.
And when is that, please? That's
July 2nd at 11 a.m.
July 2nd. Okay. Thank you very much.
And I'll also send information out.
Okay, great. Thank you.
So,
thank you very much.
Yep, no problem.
Thank you all.
See you, everybody.